27 people and injured 22 in the Baalbek district, according to Lebanon's health ministry.
Republican Senator Mike Rounds has introduced a bill to dismantle the Department of Education, aligning with a campaign promise made by President-elect Donald Trump before the general election.
Rounds, representing South Dakota, announced the Returning Education to Our States Act, calling the department, established almost 45 years ago, inefficient and overly bureaucratic.
Some U.S. hospitals are experiencing rising cases of RSV and increased instances of walking pneumonia among young children, even as overall respiratory illness levels remain relatively low nationwide. A woman who alleged that mixed martial arts fighter Conor McGregor brutally raped and battered her in a Dublin hotel penthouse was awarded nearly €250,000, $257,000.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host or guest and should not be interpreted as statement of fact.
Is that a fact?
Independent fact-checking and corrections are encouraged.
Can we get a cup of coffee in here, please?
Oh, no. Oh, wait, what's going on over there? Commercial.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Hot.
My dog is your mind's best friend.
You love that music, don't you?
My dog is your mind's best friend.
How about this one?
Wake up, America. You've got a dog that needs walking. That's right, sunshine. Just put on a big pot of strong coffee and get ready to type your little hate mail with your opinions about kumbaya and flat earth insanity. Stand-up comedy? You want stand-up comedy? Well, we've got sit-down comedy. It's time for Coffee with the Dog. You make me laugh.
Well, this ain't gonna be like a yuck type of show here today. It's not. I would love a yuck type of show. Anybody know where I could get a few yuck? I'm in. Let me yuck it up somehow. Yuckity yuck. All right, yuck. Oh, good morning, folks. Is that going to repeat? If it's going to repeat, I'm just going to shoot somebody. Don't turn off. Oh, that's nice. Turned off all by itself. Good morning. It is Monday, your favorite day of the week, waking up to a new week of blah, blah, blah. Start over, go back to your dreadful job. We have a show today. We have two different authors, two different kinds of authors. One is a psychologist, an industrial psychologist, which I have no idea what that means. And the other is a romance fantasy novelist. So not a lot of yucks today, but we might learn something if we are open to learning something. And that's always good, right? It's for a Monday morning. Feels like winter has set in here. It's the coldest day so far this year. Well, I should say so far this season. And it feels like winter is on the way. Last night, I was performing this is how big Long Island is. And this you might not realize this about Long Island. Last night I was performing in Port Washington, Long Island, New York. And I have been on Long Island probably 50 out of my 65 years lived here. I have never been in Port Washington before last night. That's how big, and I didn't even know what it was like there. Interesting kind of a place. It seems to be lots of shopping malls, not shopping malls, mini strip malls, whatever you call them, shopping centers. Lots of them, like where people go to just buy stuff, and little restaurants in the shopping centers. I was playing in an Italian restaurant that wasn't a little place. It was actually quite big and an enjoyable evening for me. Here's the thing, though. With all the crap that we've been through in this month, what I've been through, I should say, because I don't know that everybody is experiencing what I'm experiencing. Um, the the highs they're not lasting as long. I mean, I left the gig last night in a very good mood, and it that doesn't, in November of 2024, a very good mood is a rare thing for me. But last night I left there in a very good mood, but it didn't take 15 minutes for that to start to dissipate. By the time I got home, my wife was venting. Let's just say venting. And I just felt all that good mood just dissipating, becoming. And by the time I woke up this morning, I'm back to curmudgeon Matt. So there we are. Did I mention the date? Did I say it was November 25th, 2024? Monday, November 25th, 2024. I think Govs is making a big deal out of this day, and I have no idea why. Tony came out with a poster, a big 25 on it. I guess he's excited about having a full schedule today, but I'm not sure what the occasion is. Of course, this is our Thanksgiving week. If you're one of the people who feels like you have something to be grateful for, Thursday's your day to express it over a lot of food, and then you'll sleep it off. And then Black Friday, you can go out and buy a lot of crap that nobody wants, nobody needs, but we need to stimulate the economy some more, right? So go kill somebody over a TV set or a doll or whatever you're going to buy for a gift that nobody's ever going to use. Do I sound curmudgeonly? I feel curmudgeonly. But anyway, that's where we're at. I hope you had a good weekend. Again, we are going to meet a couple of authors today, and I look forward to having some discussions, especially with our first guest, who will be an industrial psychologist, because I think my psychology needs some industrializing. I think maybe. Anyway, I'm going to just kind of play a commercial here and hope that you will actually be inspired to patronize our sponsors, which today is Daily High Club. Daily High Club basically speaks for itself. And you know what? It's one of those days where I am probably going to patronize Daily High Club in some way or another. Check it out.
With humble East Coast beginnings in 2015, Daily High Club is the premier destination for glass water pipes, vaporizers, and consumption accessories. If you're looking to elevate your smoking game to the next level, you're in the right place. With over 1 million top-quality smoking products sold, and with a growing base of over 10,000 monthly subscribers worldwide, we deliver the ultimate smoking experience. But Daily High Club is not just a retailer, we're lovers of the smoking scene ourselves, working with giants like Tommy Chong, Snoop Dogg, Chanel West Coast, and more. Ready to join the Daily High Club? Let our experts curate your collection with our awesome El Primo monthly subscription box, or grab one of our fun and unique pieces from our smoke shop. Click the link in the description below this video to get this party started now.
Now. I said now. Okay, that's almost lined up correctly. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome into the room Ron, the premature curmudgeon Kane, Stephen, the sitcom Ortiz, and my brother from a Negro mother, G.D. Fenderson. Good morning, fellas.
Good morning, America. MindDogTV.com. Thanksgiving is this Thursday, so enjoy your games. Bears, Lions, Giants, Cowboys, Dolphins, Packers, and who clogged the toilet? My bet is on Uncle Walt. Speaking of bets, place all of your bets with our sponsor, Tracy. That's
right.
it. MindDogTV.com. Enjoy the suffering and support your local mercenaries.
All right. I'm glad you're up on the football schedule. Good for you. I didn't even know who was playing. I know the Lions always play on Thanksgiving, right? That's like.
And I think the Lions always play, and I think the Packers always play, and I think the Cowboys always play.
Really? They always? Oh, yeah, I did not.
I think so. I'm not. I could be wrong. I haven't watched a Thanksgiving football game in like 4 years.
Yeah, I wonder
That sounds right.
how does
Cowboys
that
and
tradition evolve? Like, I know it's Sunday, but let's do it on Thursday. I don't know. How did that? Do you have any idea? No, we
The
don't.
NFL loves to make money.
Why is that?
Is it?
People sitting around the house, on Thanksgiving, watching, maybe they figure they're all paraded out, or I don't know, because for the most part, there's not a lot of regular programming on Thanksgiving Day. A lot of people just preempted it. Now,
Well,
I don't know if it's because of football or what.
For me, it was the parade and the March of the Wooden Soldiers. Were you saying, your generation watched the March of the Wooden Soldiers? No, you don't even know.
I think he's the parade.
No, we had the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade.
Yeah, you never watched the March.
I don't know what the fuck that is.
Really? Don't even know what it is? That's a shame. My heart is broken right now. I'm just gonna go back to bed and cry.
Inside me.
Yeah. Really? Well, let me just tell you, Babes in Toyland was like a opera. Like, not an opera. What do they call that when it's like?
I thought it was a movie with Laurel and Hardy.
Well, no, Babes in Toyland was an adaptation. The movie which became the March of Wooden Soldiers was Laurel and Hardy in a movie which was an adaptation of Babes in Toyland, which was an original, not like there's another word for it. It's like a mixture. What was originally like a Broadway musical, but in the time when opera was the big kind of music, I guess. I don't know. Operatic, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. There's a word, but having advanced cognitive decline, I don't remember what the word is. But anyway, so it was about what was it about? It was about the toy maker and the people from Bogeyland invading Toyland, where the toys were made, right? And then they fought the Toyland people fought back with a bunch of wooden soldiers that were made by Santa. For what were they made for? Do you remember why they
were made for $1.50 each, but that was 1950s dollars.
Well, yeah. But the coolest thing was the rat in the balloon that was dropping bombs on people. There was
those were turds.
Your generation really liked war, man.
You're saying like this past tense.
Are falling. La, 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 la.
Well, I don't know if you noticed, but there's lots of bombs falling around the planet right now. We're lucky that none are falling here. Yeah. So you say my generation loved war. The current generation, whoever's in charge right now of
there's a different, like, okay, when I think of how like your generation looked at war, it seemed almost it seemed both like dirty, disgusting, in the ground fighting, but it also seemed romanticized a little bit. And then
you're thinking
this
of my
generation,
father's
it's just like
you're thinking of my father's
IEDs
generation. My generation took to the streets with anti-war protests all day long. That's what we were.
I might be thinking of the generation before you then.
Yeah, that's what I said. My father's generation. My father's generation was the greatest generation. They were trench warfare. Nah, that's my grandfather's generation was trench warfare. My father was ships in the Pacific. Big guns. The Battle of the Midway. But yeah,
and my father's war was. You can't fight in this war. You're too dark. You can't fight for your country. But if you do fight for your country,
you're wrong.
You can't vote.
I'm sorry.
I told you, DD, they had Operation Dark Shield.
I have to disagree.
You guys went in first.
Being dark got you a ticket to the front line.
Not necessarily.
See? I wasn't joking.
Well, but that's grave diggers and stuff like that. I don't know. They were expendable. It also depends on the war.
You can't say the wrong gloves.
Yeah, in Vietnam, though, the draft was predominantly basically you take all the dark people. The darker you were, the further to the head of the line you were.
And if you're Wesley Snipes, you're actually on the other side of the enemy line. But no. I'm talking about my father's generation. He wasn't Vietnam. He was World War
Korea?
II.
Oh, World War II, not Korea.
No, World War II.
Oh.
Now my stepfather was Korea.
Right.
See, my daddy would my daddy wasn't even a drip down his daddy's leg during all that.
Why do you have to do that? Yeah, you felt compelled to do that. We haven't been off to a vulgar enough start. Let me just say a couple of things that I've noticed already, that Ron has been outspoken this morning, and as usual. But what I noticed in Opus clips, when they cut stuff up, they will exclude Ron and put up a still picture of GD, because the still picture of GD. So we'll have GD who talks over here in the corner, but then a still picture of GD up here, because the still picture of GD actually talks more than Ron does. That picture behind you, the one over your shoulder there of you.
One that's going like me?
It's like, oh yeah. So anyway, so last night, this is kind of interesting. A young black kid recognized me in the parking lot. I was unloading into the restaurant, and he said, "Oh, my
Dad.
no, oh, mine dog." And then he proceeded to tell me about an episode that we had, that I said something that was racially insensitive, and he was mad at you, GD, for. What I'm trying to find out how to characterize what he was mad about. He was mad about the fact that you seem to be more white supremacist than I was in the conversation, and that's, I don't know, white supremacist is that bigoted about, because the conversation, and I kind of vaguely remember this conversation where I said something about I didn't find any black women attractive when in the 1950s or 60s or where it took a while, and then I started seeing more and more attractive black women, and now they're everywhere. And then his problem with you was that you were pointing out women like, I forget, Diane Carroll
Lena
or something.
Horne, Diane Carroll.
Yeah. And Lena Horne, Diane Carroll, and he was saying these are women who, black women who purposely try to whiten themselves up, like straightening their hair and like putting on what was perceived as white style. I don't know. So he was mad at you for not sticking with more traditionally African American.
Oh, Dee, how dare you not be married to how dare you not be attracted to tribal black women?
I don't remember how long ago, because it's a vague memory. I want to look at the episode and see what was said. But yeah, I get
I remember that. And if this kid knew his history, that was what most black people did back then. You know, even if they didn't lighten their skins, they whitened their attitudes, and they tried to
but
be
don't
more
they
palatable.
Don't they still do that? I mean, the ones that I was.
It depends. It depends. Because it annoys me, because you see that a lot with black male actors. It's like no matter how much hair they probably could have, they've all shaved their head so that their natural curly hair or naturally coarse hair is not seen. It's not the threat.
Right.
So yeah.
So the guy watches quite often, because he was talking about, because he mentioned the fact that you have a white wife, and he said, well, he just hates black women. And I was like, well, no, that's not necessarily the case.
But does he know that I had two black ones before that?
Well, did he?
No, well, I didn't know that. But I knew one.
Well, yeah. See, that's just the problem. See, people making these assumptions like they're treating.
I don't think you ever mentioned that though on this program.
Well, it's because racism, to me, race isn't important. It's just funny.
Right. Yeah.
I only mention the fact that my wife is white when I think I can get a chuckle out of it.
Yeah. No, I get it. You seem a little upset about this. The thing I was happy about was that somebody actually listened to the show.
And it's not that I'm not upset about it. I'm concerned that he doesn't know his history well enough.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I understand his point, but He's a little bit ignorant. But it's okay. He can come on the next time he's watching the show. If he's really a fan, if he's watching the show and he's a fan, get in the chat room. I'll be more than happy to chat with him. Matter of fact, he can come on the show. Or better yet, call me. My number is, what's your number again?
Calm down.
What's your number again?
61-496-6464, which is a problem. He has it already, but this is a problem because, as you know, I just left the band a couple of weeks ago, and I have plenty of cards with the band information on it, which is, gives it Mikey's phone number, and my cards have my old phone number on it, so I had to write on. I took 25 cards and have to write my number on the back of them all night. So, but he has my number. So, because I did tell him, you're welcome to come on the show and air his grievances about this with you directly.
Well, I'm a little insulted that's because cool. I know because not everyone on this show likes white women, so that's offensive in and of itself. I don't.
See, now, I have no preference to race. I just like consent.
Right.
No, white women are a special kind of crazy.
You don't. Oh, really? All white women? So that's a
blanket statement.
Very
blanket
bigoted
statement.
That's it's a very bigoted thing to say.
Yeah.
I guess my guest doesn't want to meet you today. She doesn't want to have anything to do with you.
No, it's definitely not all, but it's like the ones that have been in my life have all been a special kind of like evil.
Wow.
But that was what you were attracting. You were attracting that special.
We're going down this Willie talk and
my mom
talk.
was a white lady. I
didn't attract. You ever once consider that the energy you put down is attracting all this horrible stuff?
No, I'm not talking about that. That's nonsense, and that's nonsense and poppycock. I'm talking about when I say attract. I'm saying that people have patterns that they're familiar with, and they seek out those patterns until they break out of them.
It's definitely.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm sorry.
It's definitely deep-seated issues with my mom being abusive. I get that. For sure.
Yeah.
And I apologize to the white ladies who aren't crazy, but those of you that are.
All right, it's time to meet our first guest now. With names, and you would think, because I think this is an Italian last name, and you would think, well, Matt.
Roseanne DeCilio.
Try that again, Doctor. First of all, say Doctor.
Okay. Dr. Roseanne.
Dr. Roseanne DeCilio.
D'Orsilio, right? I'm thinking D'Orsilio.
I'm thinking Dow, like AU together.
Maybe it's just all one. Like DeCilio.
Well, we'll ask her which is correct. It turns out that GD is more Italian than me. My ex-girlfriend would not be surprised by that. I don't know if I ever told you about that. A girl actually broke up with me for not being Italian enough.
Yeah, I had two women dump me because I wasn't black enough, and one of them was Chinese. So
wow. Well, you know what not being Italian enough meant to her? I think I didn't need enough.
You said sauce instead of gravy.
Well, yeah, that could be it, but no, I didn't say it. But it was very food centric. Like, because she would be planning Christmas dinner now and thinking about, just everything was about food. And I'm not one of those kind of guys. Basically asked me 2 minutes after dinner was supposed to be served, and I'll tell you what I'm in the mood for. Anyway, Dr. Roseanne D'Orsilio is an industrial psychologist, master business coach, consultant trainer, best-selling author, customer service expert, and president of Human Technologies Global, which specializes in human performance management. And I think we could use some human performance here. Good morning, Dr. D'Orsilio. Is that correct?
All of the above.
Okay.
But it's actually D'Orsilio.
D'Orsilio. Okay.
D'Orsilio.
Now, is that Italian?
It is, but I'm not. I'm an IBMer. You know what that means? Italian
international.
by marriage. Italian by marriage.
I thought you were going to say international business machines. That's how old I am. So this idea of industrial psychologist, I've never heard that phrase before. Enlighten me.
So let me tell you what it's not. I'm not a therapist. What I know is what makes companies tick on the people side. I've always been in corporate America, never looking the part of corporate America, but making money for companies. So they let me do it my way.
Wow.
It was about taking human doings, the people in corporate America, the robots, and turn them into human beings.
Okay.
That's one of my books.
Yeah, I'm showing you a book.
It
Oh,
was my latest book.
that's the latest book. What is that? That's the one that's on the promo cover. Pain. What?
Pumpernickel.
Pain and
Pumpernickel and Profound Forgiveness. And the subtitle is A Daughter's Story of Her Punishing and Loving Relationship with her father.
All right. Now, I'm interested where Pumpernickel fits into the whole.
Well, probably you should read the book, but I'll give you a hint.
Yeah, give me a hint.
Bread.
I was guessing because rye has too many seeds. That's why pumpernickel. Come on.
I can't remember. I know I've had pumpernickel, but it had to be at least 50 years ago. I don't think
It's a good bread. You should try it.
So there's a story in my book, but a big pumpernickel bread, almost the size of a football, would get sliced across and then sliced down. And you couldn't slice it for bread because it was too hot. And I would go there with my father on Sunday mornings to get it, and we'd come back and have it with our breakfast. And the butter would come steaming out of the bread. And, it was one of those memories.
All right, we're going to take a break here. I'm going to go get something to eat. Now that that was, a nice description, an enticing description. I know my father was in a pumpernickel, but I'm more interested in profound forgiveness because I've talked about what that means to me, and a big part of that. Well, let me ask you what is meant by the phrase "profound forgiveness" as you intended it.
It's not anything I ever thought was going to happen. My father was a rageaholic. When I was a bad girl, my mother would have me stand in the corner. But if she couldn't handle me, she called on my father, and my father took the strap to me, the belt. And I thought that only happened when I was really bad. And I was in a workshop once, and we had divided into 6 people groups. And I was telling them the story that I just told you. And he said, stop. And he called everyone in to come and hear what I had said, and said that I had a contaminated part of my brain that thought I deserved to be beaten.
Wow. Yeah, I can relate to that.
And now, fast forward to, I don't know, maybe I was 40, maybe I was 50. My parents lived in Florida. I lived in New York on Long Island. And I got up really early to talk to my father. And I said, I want you to know that I hated you when I was growing up. I was afraid of you. I walked on eggs. And you beat me, and no child deserves to be beaten. My father started crying. He apologized to me. He told me he only did what he knew, which was what his father did to him and taught him. And from that day on, we had a relationship that was real. Wow. That's what I mean by profound forgiveness.
All right.
Where you don't expect it coming, or there'll be a DI, not a DUI, a DI. That's for divine intervention. Something happened in that moment with my father. Something shifted that had nothing to do with me and nothing to do with him. And in that space, we had a healing, each of us.
Now, my question is, by chance, do you think your father had always had a little bit of regret, which is why the tears came so quickly when you addressed him with that? Or do you think it was just like an aha moment, like all of a sudden he realized it?
I think it was an aha moment. My father wasn't psychological or deep or any of that. He was a workaholic. He was, when I wrote the book, I looked up in Wikipedia, people growing up in the 50s. The man was the breadwinner. The wife was the person that took care of the children in the house. That was it. So I'm a Stepford child. I looked really good on the outside with my parents, But home, it was empty because my parents weren't my friends. They told me that. They were my parents.
A lot of people who are definitely in the aspect of mental health awareness talk about parenting, and it always comes back to parenting and how you were raised and the scars of our youth. And I have forgiven my parents, and I don't know if it's profound forgiveness, but I feel like the question I have is, do you feel like he had to apologize and ask for forgiveness? Because when this seems to be a thing in my life, people want forgiveness, but don't ever accept that they've done anything wrong or don't ever apologize for it. Is that a necessary component? Asking for it, apologizing, is that a necessary component of forgiveness?
I don't think it's a necessary component, but I don't think that you can go from A to C without going through B. If you're not authentic in giving, anyone knows it, because if we're speaking in our heads, which is where corporate America is, if we're speaking in our heads, it's empty. If we're speaking from our heart, it's honest. That's just my interpretation.
Okay. Now, there is no handbook on saying how to be a good parent. So I think most of us, if you are a parent, you're just going by what your father said. Basically, this was what I knew. This is how I was raised, and we kind of passed that down. It's like a hand-me-down abuse.
Yeah, but what you don't give back, you pass on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So now with that, how does is this because your focus is corporate corporate psychology, I guess. How does this book, Pain, Pumpernickel, and what was the rest of it? Profound Forgiveness. Yeah. How does that play into the corporate world? I mean, it sounds like a very personal and individual thing.
Yeah, what I'm noticing is that people in corporate America they don't have boundaries, so they're workaholics. Many of them are leaving. I'm a coach also, a business coach, and they're leaving corporate America, going into entrepreneurship or whatever it is that's next for them. But they don't know what that is, and they're stuck. They're just stuck. And I have a tagline that I like, which is that you're never too old to make peace with your past. So whatever's unfinished in the past, we're carrying it around. Sometimes we're aware of it. If we're aware of it, we can do something about it. If we're not aware of it, we're just doing it. My father was just doing it. If I hadn't nailed it on it, he would never have had that conversation with me. He would, in his own space, never thought of coming to me and apologizing for the way he raised me. He thought he raised a wonderful daughter.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting to me because my father was, I know my brother would probably hear the word rageaholic and get angry because he's an alcoholic. And to him, to say, put a holic on the end of anything is just like, it's an outrage to him. But my father was filled with rage. He was a guy who had a really nasty temper. Everybody was afraid of him. And I became that same person. But I was lucky enough to have ruined a marriage and almost ruined a second marriage, and had it pointed out to me before I was on my deathbed or before I became too old to kind of try and address the wrongs of the raging animal that I was and why I became that, which was modeling my father. I just thought men were supposed to be angry all the time. That was the message I got. Yeah. But it does take some introspection and looking in and see. It doesn't hurt because my mother was part of the generation where you didn't get divorced no matter what happened. So she never called him on it. So it took my first wife to actually call me on it. Maybe there's something to this. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am just a dick.
Yeah. My mom was born in 1932. My father was born in 1922. So they may have been about the same age as your parents. I'm not sure, because you and I are about the same age. But my mom did not believe in divorce either. But she would say, my mother, I'm sorry, I won't use the actual word because it's not 10:45 yet. But my mother would say, I do not believe in divorce, but I will kill an N-word. So,
Wow.
Because she believed in death do us part. So,
Wow. Well, that's one way out.
Hey, she outlived two husbands. So her philosophy worked for her.
So she murdered two husbands. Cool. Back to you, Matt.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Because you're black?
My parents were married. I don't know what happened to my voice today. My parents were married 66 years.
Wow.
Do you imagine? I was married 14 years, 2 times. Can't get past 14.
I'm sorry to make this about you and you're growing up, but I'm curious because it's a crossover to a lot of relationships that I saw. Do you blame your mom? Do you blame your mother at all? We're talking about forgiveness, but did she have a role in allowing
that? Many times she was mommy dearest.
Yeah.
And when I sent my book to the editor, she said, I'm reading stories about your mother. This isn't a book about your father. This is a book about your parents. So I changed it to parents. I was paying her a lot of money and I got agita. It's like it wasn't setting well with me. And I said, you know what? This is a book about my father and me. And what I did is in the introduction, I said, the reason I have stories about my mother is to show you that there was no one in my side when I was growing up.
Right.
I was taught not to talk about the family outside the family.
Yeah.
So I didn't have anyone to tell. And I was a mistake. My sister was 16 years old when I was born.
Right.
Yay, mistakes. Yay, mistakes.
Somebody got a motorcycle taken off somewhere or something?
Yeah. I closed all the windows. I put down the curtains. I put a note on the door. Do not disturb, recording going on.
Thank you for doing all that.
We didn't get the memo.
I just assumed it was Steven up in the left-hand corner there. Because I know somebody. It's very difficult for me to talk because I don't want anybody to feel like I'm outing them or talking about their particular trauma and issues. So I have to be very careful about this. I know a family where 3 daughters were victims of incest, rape and incest by the father. They didn't really process that well at all. The father, nobody in the family ever really went to extensive counseling to deal with this stuff, but it was always thought that the father was the devil, even though they let him back into their lives and he became part of the nuclear family again. And the mother and father divorced, but the mother was never given any kind of responsibility. And to my view, and I'm not looking for blame or any of this kind of stuff, but at some level, the mother had to know this was going on. The father sneaking into his 3 daughters' rooms every night and disappearing and this stuff. And she was never kind of held accountable for her role in that. Like, she could not have been blind to it. And, what I would do in that situation, who knows? But I mean, I think she has to have some accountability on it. We can't just, in a situation like that.
Sometimes people don't act on something that they know, so they pretend they don't know it.
Right. Stick your head in the sand and don't. And I can forgive that too, because I know how hard that situation has got to be. I mean, on the human level, everything is difficult, and who am I to judge? Understanding the kind of courage it would take to confront that and what that would mean. Eventually, it did come out, and that caused a divorce and all that kind of stuff, and the whole family broke up and all that kind of stuff. But who knows? I mean, it's just really, it's a hard thing. But my whole thing was the mother never had to accept, and still to this day never accepted any responsibility for it. It was just because she married a pervert, and it's like, well, there were
So
other
when
things.
something like that happens and you get stimulated, it's a gift for you to look and say, what's going on with me? Where am I not speaking up? Where am I putting the dirt under the carpet?
Right. Yeah.
It could be something little, but that's a don't stop before the miracle. Because
Right.
the more you learn about yourself, the more you can let go of it, the more you have peace and serenity. I had this book 40 years ago. I had thrown pieces of paper with stories in a manila folder. And in all the iterations of moving, I lost it. When I moved from New York to Northern Virginia, I was in my office and I had these 3x5 binders with the plastic that you put something in it in the front, because I used to do trainings. And as I was doing it, I came across the file folder. And I just looked up and said, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And then I wrote the book. And you know what? It wasn't to have been written 40 years ago, because I had no spiritual side then, and I do now. And I have more DIs, divine interventions, where something happened that there was no way I had anything to do with it. It was better than I could have made up. And you know what? I like when that happens. And then I found out that I'm not alone. Whenever I see, and maybe one of you can attest to it, whenever I see red cardinals, I know my father's nearby. I know he's in the room.
You know,
then your father
Augie.
is outside my house almost every day, because I have red cardinals, like dozens of them. So your dad has been visiting me as well.
Every chapter has a red cardinal.
Yeah,
Oh, a
it's
coloring
funny you
book
say
as
that.
well.
No, not a coloring book. I guess it could be. So it was a healing for me. I didn't sign on for a healing. I signed on for a book.
Right. Yeah.
And I got a healing over and over and over again. But what's really interesting to me is that there's 125 amazing reviews on my book. And I didn't think there'd be many men, because it's raw, it's emotional. I have more men that are writing these reviews because they got triggered. They got triggered by something when I talked about a chess game. And they remembered playing chess with their father, and he never spoke. Everywhere I went with my father or my mother, they never spoke.
Right.
Because there was a dividing line between parent and child, no matter how old the child was.
Now, I have a question. You're talking about the playing chess. Now, in one of your books, you have included a 32 card deck. Is that card deck, can that be used to play other games other than, can you play like Uno, or can you play like What's Your Problem and you figure it out with the deck? What's the deck for?
The deck is, I forgot how many. The book is, which one is the book? I forgot the name.
I think it's called Lay Your Cards on the Table.
Right,
52 ways to stack your personal deck.
Okay, and the deck is 35 of the best ones in there. So what you do is, it's not a card game. Shuffle them and pick one and read it, and usually it has an impact on where you are in your life. But it's not a card game. And the reason there's 35 is that's how many that would fit on whatever it is they were making the cards for me.
Okay, because
But if you ever went to buy that book, my publisher doesn't include the deck of cards.
Oh, see, because I was thinking more like a Kreskin thing, where it says pick a card, and then you pick your card and say, okay, this is your problem. Yeah, this is, you're like, okay,
exactly.
Yeah, this is what's wrong with you today. This is what you need to work on today.
Give it to you.
Ace of Spades.
that was my nickname in college.
I know it was. That's why I brought it up. Interesting stuff. Do you think men are by nature less introspective?
Well, if I go by the things that I read in the reviews, I used to say yes, but I don't think so. But you have to know that I'm an introspective person, And I'm a person that's got to the point where I have peace and serenity in my life, and I know what to do when I don't have it. So I don't attract people that live on a different level.
Wow.
I scare them away.
I would like to scare them away. But then I'd have to become that rageaholic that I was as a young person.
Yeah, I could be a rageaholic too. I don't know how to be angry. I only know how to rage. But I know that now. And so once you have an awareness, you get to be a choice. When you're unconscious and you're acting out, you don't know you're doing it. You feel it a little bit, but it's gone.
That's a pretty thought-provoking comment there. I don't know how to be angry. I only know how to rage. Is there a correct way to be angry? This is what it's got me thinking. Like, is there? I mean, expressing anger is different than being angry and how to feel it. Is there a right and wrong way to experience anger?
I'm not a person to answer that, but my knee jerk is no. Non-violently.
Yeah.
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 That's how. See now, because I used to have
express your feelings. You know, you could ask the same thing. Is there a certain way to be loving? Is there a certain way to be fill in the blank?
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
I grew up.
We're the ones that say whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. We're the judge. And when I'm with friends and I think somebody's going to judge me, I said, hold on, we're in a non-judgment zone here.
Good luck with that.
That's what people do. They laugh.
Yeah, because I don't think everybody can swear off their judgment and say, well, we're going to be non-judgmental here. But human nature is judgmental, I think, on some level, even if it's sublimated.
Well, I used to be pretty judgmental, and I used to be very set in my ways, and I wasn't very flexible. God bless the flexible.
Have you tried yoga? Have you tried yoga? Have you tried yoga?
No, that helps. But I do Zumba.
Okay.
Picarumba.
Ay caramba.
Ay caramba.
Excuse myself for a few minutes, guys. We have some laborers at the home, and I need to.
They're legal, right? They got their green cards.
At least 60% do.
Okay.
We'll give you a pass on that then.
All right. So check out and come back whenever you can. All right.
Okay. Cool.
Now let me come back to this layout here, and this I like. That's better. You talked about. I don't know. I don't exactly remember exactly how you phrased it, but you were talking about dealing with things in the past. Obviously, we can't change the past.
But we can change how we see it. We can change how we interact with it. We can't change. I can't change the rageaholic that my father was. That one day I was good girl and the next day I was slammed for the same thing. So I walked on eggs my childhood, and I could make a whole big thing, and I could get you all enrolled, and I could be a drama queen about it. But I'm a recovering drama queen. I don't do it anymore. What for? So I can look at my past and say, if there was no other way that I would be who I am today, if my past hadn't been what it was, and I hadn't married an SOB that just destroyed me.
Yeah.
But look who I am today. I'm going to say thank you, thank you, thank you.
What's the escape route from being a drama queen? I have to be this in case it's a very profound answer for somebody I need to share it with.
What it means is tell the truth. Don't tell the story about the truth. Oh my God, look what happened to me. And then this happened, and then this happened. And everyone's going to get enrolled either at the first one or the fourth one, when in fact, I can just report something happened. I wouldn't change for who I am today. And I never knew anything about spirituality. I never knew about divine intervention. You know, I was taught facts. Here's the facts. My father wasn't emotional. He was when he got older, but he wasn't when I was growing up. He was really, you know, like a Hitler. And maybe he wasn't, but I can't do anything about the past but say he did the best he could with what he had. He didn't get up in the morning and say, today's the day I'm going to destroy her self-esteem. You know, he didn't do those kind of things.
Right, yeah. That's a very interesting thing. But I wanted to ask about how all this plays into corporate America and the people you deal with. But you've mentioned divine intervention and spirituality a number of times here today, and I'm very interested in this because I have gone through moments where I felt like there was something bigger at play in my life, and that was evidence of something much bigger than us. But then I've come back to positions of extreme doubt and the idea of asking for divine intervention and it doesn't happen, and that is for me evidence that it's all just man-made ideas. When you talk about divine intervention, is that what you use for a foundation for faith and spirituality? And if it doesn't happen, does that rock your faith and spirituality to a point of becoming a doubter?
Here's my bottom line on that. I stay open for willingness. I have willingness. I have willingness to have a spiritual experience. I can't say, here's what I want, because we're talking facts. That's not the domain in which it lives.
Right.
But I can tell you that things happened between my father and I that were woo-woo.
Woo-woo?
That's the best I can explain it. They were woo-woo. They didn't live in current reality. Even to the point, and I don't want to ruin the book for anyone that's listening, but there's quite a few of them in there.
Again, I can relate to some of this stuff because I've had lots of those moments, lots of them, where it feels like there's a connectivity to something much bigger than us. But when I look at the world that we live in today and the reality of the man's inhumanity to man and all the stuff that we are celebrating right now, it's hard for me to even not believe that I want so much. And this is part of critical thinking too. If you want to believe in something, you will find evidence to support what you want to be true.
Here's where I live. I live in the land of abundance and the space of possibility. And I say that every time, every day. I live in the land of abundance and the space of possibility. Take it for yourself if you want.
Okay.
And then I live my life. And does it happen? Well, here's one of the ways it happened to me. I forgot what it is now, but I had a major expense in the house that I didn't anticipate. So I was coming from, oh my God, getting ready to be a victim. And I looked down and I found a quarter in the parking lot. And I went, oh yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. I forgot I live in the land of abundance.
Wow. So you got yourself like a quarter of a cup of coffee with that quarter, or an eighth of a cup. Like that's that didn't solve your financial problem.
I don't know what I don't know what I believe until it happens.
All right.
And some of the things that happen aren't believable. They're open for interpretation. Right. So what serves me and what brings me peace is my interpretation of how I go back to what you asked about, making peace with the past.
Okay.
What you don't give back, you pass on. And what you don't pass on directly comes out sideways.
Now,
you have to be careful.
Coming back to the industrial part of this, the industrial psychology, and working with corporate America, and getting the most out of your team and all this kind of stuff. Do you find, because my last my last interaction with corporate America ended 6-7 years ago, and it was a very frustrating experience for me because there were 5 C-level executives, and I was just under them, and I was basically the guy who was managing the company, answering to 5 C-level guys who were old school men, hard nosed, you get the most out of people by cracking the whip harder kind of guys, and they did not seem to be open to new ideas. They were rigid old dogs who were refusing to learn new tricks. And so is corporate America open to the kind of things you're talking about?
Corporate America is not, but the individual people are. And those that come forward and step out are willing to do it differently.
Even the C-level execs, because those, apparently at some point there will be a passing of a torch to a younger generation, I think, who is more open-minded. But these guys seem to be all older than me and very set in their ways. We were talking generations before. These were greatest generation type of guys, or somewhere between the greatest generation and the boomers, somewhere in there. But they were old school. So maybe as younger people become C-level executives, it becomes more open when you talk about individuals. But the individuals, the 5 individuals I worked with were definitely dogs who were not going to learn new tricks.
When I was first in New York, when I was 23 years old, I worked for a company, and IBM was the client. And they were robots. Yeah. The head of IBM didn't want any drinking, so none of them could have alcohol in front of him, more or less. And they were white bread, and they were empty. They were empty robots.
Right.
They're still there today. They look a little different, but they're still there today. Those aren't clients of mine. The clients that I have are the CEOs that want to do it differently, or someone mid-level who want to move up, and they're using what they knew to get there, and it's not there. How do you move into management when you sat alongside of the person and now you're their boss? They have a hard time with that one, a really hard time with that one.
Yeah. And we're getting to the point where we're going to have to wrap this up. The name of the book again is Pain, Pumpernickel, and Profound Forgiveness. Right?
You got it. Yeah.
That's the most current book. It's available on your site, drroseanne.com. I just want
It's available at Amazon. I don't even sell my own book. I let Amazon do it.
Oh, okay.
Because what I do is throw money at it, get it done. Throw money at it, get it done. I am unwilling to give my peace away for today.
Wow.
So when something happens, you say to yourself, am I willing to give my peace up for this?
Okay.
I'm a choice about it. Sometimes I give it up. Road rage. I got broken of road rage because my second wonderful Italian husband said, you got to give this guy a break. He spent his whole day trying to figure out what time to appear so as to get in front of you to cut you off to make an immediate left turn.
Yeah.
And it made me laugh, so I don't have road rage anymore.
Yeah, Bill Burr, a comedian, talks about an incident where he caught himself saying, why the hell did he turn down that block? Well, maybe he lives there, Bill. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we never really think about what the other person. I think there's a whole psychological dynamic to being in an automobile that changes our personality somewhat.
Oh, for sure.
Makes us more aggressive and more aggressively defensive.
Because we don't do it on a plane.
Yeah, right. Because we're not driving. We don't have the wheel in front of us. I think somehow.
Yeah, but the way you feel is different. And, it's like, well, I just gave up 15 minutes of my life.
Yeah.
So it's about what you're committed to, where your willingness is, and then where do your feet go?
Right. Yeah.
You're never too old to make peace with your past.
See, that's what you said before, and that kind of that for me, that's a very difficult thing, making peace with my past, because I do. When you talk about profound forgiveness, I could do it for some people in my life, but I can't really, or haven't been
Oh,
able
you
to.
handpick the ones you're going to do because they're
Right,
easy.
but for myself, forgiving
But the tough
myself is,
ones, no.
yeah. That's the hardest thing. I mean, I definitely have, because last night I was in an Italian restaurant. They made me sing My Way. And regrets, I've had a few. Regrets, I've had 100,000. I don't know if I'm unusual in that, but there are a lot of things in my life.
Is there anyone here that hasn't had regrets in their life?
Yeah, no. Well, Stephen hasn't. He's
You're not
got no
alone.
regrets.
You're not alone. The more
I have a million regrets.
The more you reveal who you are, the more you make yourself vulnerable, the more you find out how many more people there are on the planet just like you.
That's a very good message for people this morning.
But
Can
you're
you?
the kind of person that comes to me that wants help. And I'm very good at reading between the lines. I'm not a therapist, but I know how to help people. And
Yeah.
one of the things I have I'm not one of those teeny boppers. I have something that all those people that you were talking about that are sea level or the young ones that are coming after. I have something none of them have. You know what that is?
What is that?
Wisdom for all the years I've been on the planet.
Wisdom.
I find out how old I am and they get surprised. I said, well, this is what my age looks like. It's not what my age looks like. It's what I look like.
I just when you said that, I had a vision of Tommy Chong defining wisdom for me. He said, and I'm going to be a little profane here. He said, "Wisdom is the ability to know when to shut the fuck up."
Yeah. That's a good interpretation. That's very good.
Yeah, I like it too.
Makes me speechless. Shut me up right away.
I know. Well, it had the same effect to me, and it was like I guess that's time for us to end that interview because I basically I knew it was time for me to shut the fuck up. I had no more questions for it. But yeah, wisdom is because you can be young and wise. I was thinking about because Miley Cyrus, of all people, came to mind yesterday because I'm not sure if it was her birthday. She was trending on Twitter or something, and I thought there was a time when I was really trying to get her as a guest on the program, and I don't really know her music, and I don't really know much about her, but I know that she's wise for her age. She's only in her early 30s, but she has experienced enough in life that she's been giving a gift of extreme wisdom, even not having 60 years of experience to acquire it or whatever that we assume that it's going to take. Sometimes young people, especially if they start like she started as a very young person with 14-hour days scripted for her, hard work days along with school and all that stuff. I think you get life lessons a lot quicker when you grow up in that kind of atmosphere.
Sure. It's all about where your willingness is, because you could go through that like a robot.
Right.
You could numb yourself with food or alcohol or drugs or relationships.
Yeah. Before we wrap this up, can we just tell me a little bit about your contribution to Everyday Heroes? Because Everyday Heroes is something, as a subject that I'm almost always looking for heroism in or evidence of heroism in people who really step up and are heroes in our life. What is your contribution to that collection?
A story that I wasn't going to include and someone wanted to read it, on how I chose to live half my life in the Caribbean and half my life in the US, and how it started, and it's 17 years later, and I work from both places and I make my life work. And so it's a very simple short story. They're all short stories, that each person has contributed what was for them. I could say, looking back, that I had a DI and I didn't know it. I could name it a DI, that the breeze hitting me in the face, and I can't remember, something else happened that was very significant for me. It was a place I went on a holiday to for a weekend one time.
Wow.
And now 17 years later, I go there in November and I come back in May. If I have to go to a client, I go from here. I'm here now. I'm in the Caribbean.
Wow. What part of the Caribbean are you in?
I'm in the Dominican Republic.
Now you say Caribbean. I think we say Caribbean. So I know I have said Caribbean.
Well,
People.
I'm from Ohio. And I speak
I thought you were from
correctly.
Long Island. No.
Well, that's where I live most of, I lived 15 years there, 14 years there.
Well, I'd like to apologize for that on behalf of the United States of America. But thank you. What? Go ahead.
I love Long Island. I've loved everywhere I've lived. I love my life today. I'm not sitting around waiting to die.
I'll be honest with you. On this morning, I would rather be in the Caribbean or Caribbean. I would rather be down where you are than on Long Island today, because I'm not a cold weather person, and I like if I had my way, it would be spring and summer, and we could do away with the other two seasons. But that's
It's all about putting it out to the universe.
Yeah, okay.
Come on, global warming.
Yeah, no, that's not what I meant.
I've written a lot of books. Most of them are business books.
Wow.
This was from my heart. This was a healing for me.
Well,
and a healing for, if you go on Amazon, not just to buy the book, read the reviews. They blew me away. They just blow me away. The way people get in Northern Virginia, it's very close to DC. So there's a lot of people that are military. So somebody wrote about how their father was in the military, so he was never there, and he had a huge resentment for him. But after reading the book, he was able to shift his perception, which allowed him to have a relationship with his father.
You know, it became very trendy to go reparent yourself, and the psychological trends of the 1980s and 90s. It was like healing the inner child and all that kind of stuff. It feels like that's coming back again. Whatever works for people. I'm again judgmental. I'm being a little judgmental on right now in the moment, thinking about it, because we all have. Nobody had great parents. Nobody I ever talked to had. I love my dad. I love my mom. Yeah, but were they great parents? No. Everybody has
great parents. No, everybody has.
They make their own mistakes. Everyone does.
Yeah. I just heard myself
If
talking.
they're good in one thing, they're not good in another.
All right. We do have to wrap this up. I appreciate you being here. drroseanne.com. And the name of the book is Pain, Pumpernickel, and Profound Forgiveness. It's available on Amazon. You can go to a website and figure out how you can work with her, or how your business can work with her. Dr. Roseanne, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the program.
Thank you. Thank you all. I really had a good time.
Have a great day. Bye for now. Whoop. Dr. Roseanne Dorsilio. That's how you pronounce it. We have to do news really quickly, and then we'll get to our next guest, and we're going to learn about romance fantasies and Vikings. Are you titillated by Vikings, Stephen? Yeah, all right.
Oh yeah.
Finish inside me.
Now, what would be titillating about Vikings in your mind?
Well, according to my aunt's 23andMe, we have lineage that comes from that area of the world. So that part interests me. But also the fact that they valued women in a different way than a lot of other cultures at that time did.
What do you mean they valued women? Like property? They would come and rape and pillage and plunder.
They were considered equals.
Really?
Yeah. Women weren't shit on like they were in every other culture.
Their women were considered
their women.
Yeah,
Yes,
but not the places they plundered. Yeah. All right.
Well, okay, plundering, the raping and pillaging. Of course that happened, yes, but who wasn't that day? Those days.
No, it does seem like a factor of the war mentality, the military mentality. It just seems like, and because we always, this Pete Hegseth guy accused of rape and all that stuff. I think if you're in the military for long enough, there is a rape culture that you acquire. Anyway, let's listen. Good news, and then we'll meet Bambi, and I don't mean a deer.
Some U.S. hospitals are experiencing rising cases of RSV and increased instances of walking pneumonia among young children, even as overall respiratory illness levels remain relatively low nationwide.
Cook Children's Medical Centers in Texas reported a sharp increase in respiratory-related visits to their emergency rooms. At their Fort Worth facility alone, there were 572 patients, a number nearing record highs. Officials attributed the surge to the spread of RSV and walking pneumonia across the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Ron
Jessica Oakley reported.
Republican Senator Mike Rounds has introduced a bill to dismantle the Department of Education, aligning with a campaign promise made by President-elect Donald Trump before the general election.
Rounds, representing South Dakota, announced the Returning Education to Our States Act, calling the department, established almost 45 years ago, inefficient and overly bureaucratic. If approved by Congress and signed by the president, the legislation would disband the Department of Education 180 days after becoming law. Liam White reporting.
Israel intensified its bombing campaign in southern and eastern Lebanon, launching airstrikes near Beirut and Tyre.
These airstrikes killed at least 47 people and injured 22 in the Baalbek district, according to Lebanon's health ministry. A series of strikes also hit Dahia, a neighborhood in southern Beirut. According to Israeli Defense Forces spokesman Colonel Avichai Adrei, the IDF stated the area is predominantly controlled by Hezbollah forces. Benjamin Wright reporting.
This is the latest news headlines.
Is that it, Al? Yeah, Al forgot to give
Americans gearing up for holiday cooking may face limited availability or higher prices for a key ingredient, eggs.
Avian influenza, commonly known as bird flu, continues to affect egg-laying flocks across the U.S., with outbreaks reported in 48 states since 2022. This has led to a nearly 3% drop in production in October compared to the same time last year, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Kyle Norris reporting.
A woman who alleged that mixed martial arts fighter Conor McGregor brutally raped and battered her in a Dublin hotel penthouse was awarded nearly €250,000, $257,000 by a civil court jury in Ireland.
Nikita Hand claimed the December 9, 2018 incident left her with severe bruises and post-traumatic stress disorder. McGregor denied the accusations, testifying that the encounter was consensual and asserting that Hand fabricated her claims. His lawyer labeled her a gold digger seeking financial gain. Lawrence Keller reporting.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced the addition of mislabeled clonazepam packages to a voluntary recall initially issued earlier this year.
Endo Incorporated, the drug's manufacturer, expanded the recall to include 16 lots of clonazepam, as noted in a November 19th recall notice. The affected product, clonazepam orally disintegrating tablets, is sold in cartons containing 60 tablets packaged in 10 blister strips of 6 tablets each, according to the company. Jim Kender reporting.
And that's the latest news headlines with Alan Edwards.
That Conor McGregor thing. They had a picture of him coming out of court. Now, $257,000. Really, that's what you get.
Nothing to him. That is, he wipes his ass with that kind of money. That's ridiculous.
Also, I mean, for a rape victim, you're gonna. It doesn't feel like it's equal. It's good enough.
I mean, it almost sounds like he was found like. I know it was a civil suit, but it basically sounds like, yeah, sure, okay, I did it. Here's some money, go away. Like, it's horrible.
For her, it's like, for me, I'm thinking the idea about this is how would $257,000 do to deal with the rest of your life having trauma?
That's not just trauma, but you get to see your fucking the guy that raped you all over TV, all over the internet, praised as one of the best fighters in the world, Dana White's fucking lapdog, and yeah, that's horrible for her. That $257,000 is going to all go into therapy probably.
And there was a picture of him coming out of court, and he was standing next to his wife, and the look on his wife's face seemed to indicate that, you can't just read into people's thoughts, but if you could, you might be inclined to think she heard the testimony and she was not buying his story. That's what it looked like. She was just looking at him with a very jaundiced eye, like, you did it.
It's not a shocking thing, man. I mean, a lot of these MMA fighters have a really short fuse. They're violent, high testosterone. I'm not shocked by it. It's like a soldier, just like a soldier.
Right.
I just wonder.
I think Ron's.
Hey, Ron is talking.
Yeah. I think Connor just wants to get back to licking Dana's lips. That's it.
Yeah,
to keep
100%.
To keep some moistness on those lips and.
Wow. Okay. Did you see Dana White said he's not going to touch politics anymore? I don't want to get into the actual.
He only touches his wife. That's it. That's all he hits. That's all he hits is his wife.
He said that politics was way too dirty for him.
All those guys, man. I mean, the fact that they can publicly just beat women, and then people are just like, "It's fine, cool." It's just so fucked up.
I kind of wish he would have had that revelation that politics was too dirty, like 2 or 3 months ago. That would have been a good thing. We have to get on to our next guest.
Bambi.
Bambi's not a deer in the headlights, but she could be after listening to us on this morning. I would be. She is from. She graduate of the University of Maryland European Division. University of Maryland has a European division. That's an odd thing, right? Like not a European campus, a European division. With a degree in English and history, and she writes paranormal romances and Viking erotica. She's here now, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome. My word!
Welcome, Bambi.
Well, good morning, guys. I have been sitting here listening to you for the last 5 minutes, so
we apologize for that.
Yeah, I have my hands full now because you guys are not going to believe this. You picked the wrong Bambi.
Wow.
There are two Bambis that have written, two Bambi Lyns that have written on Amazon. I am not the exotic dancer one.
So who's responsible? Is this on me, or is the publicist that sent me the wrong stuff?
Well, I'm not sure. When I heard you about 10 minutes ago, I immediately sent you an email saying, "Hey, wait a minute, you got the wrong Bambi."
Oh my God. Well, that's kind of embarrassing, isn't it?
No, you're not the first one.
Yeah. Now
who's the deer in headlights?
I was going to come back to this idea that there's two Bambi Lyns because you are BambiLyn.net, right? Or no? That's her.
No.
Yep.
Nope, I am not BambiLyn.net. But you're not the first person that has done this. So the first person that did this interviewed me way back. I've been interviewed like up to on podcasts almost 100 times since of April of this year. The very first one, the first 5, he said, "So how did you ever get into doing exotic romance?" And I'm like, what is he talking about? And then I'm like, oh my goodness, you have the wrong Bambi. I'm the one that wrote my memoir. And so I just said, you know what? I'm a mother of 6. I've never been on a pole, and I have 13 grandchildren. So
well,
man, Matt, you got me so excited for erotic Vikings.
I know.
And instead you brought me a mother of 6. You are a jerk. Bambi, I apologize.
I'm coming for you. Entertainment,
So could you just give us a little Viking erotica just for the hell of it?
I wish I could. You would
Eric
think
the Red naked or something.
He slowly took off his shirt, exposing his hairy chest to the woman in front of him.
Thank you.
Then,
oh, that is.
I would not have guessed that Ron would be the one who actually writes Viking erotica, but let's go. Let's run with it.
As Theo rubbed Igor's chest, they became engorged while his wife watched in astoundment as this man made him a horse in front of him.
So,
mention
Bambi,
Odin, and I will come right now.
I am confused because the Bambi Lynn that I found also has your picture. I mean, it's your picture on the promo. It's the internet has got you two mixed up.
And the thing is that Amazon, when I wrote my stories, when I wrote my books, Amazon contacted both of us and told one of us that we needed to change our names. And we're both like, you know what? We've had to live with this name our whole lives. We're not changing it. You guys do something.
I've experienced that with a Mind Dog. There's a guy, a younger fella, younger than me. But he contacted me back in the days of MySpace, saying that he wanted me to change my name. I was like, well, I've had that moniker for 40 years now. You're not even 25 years old. I mean, I think I was here first.
Yeah, and that's what we told Amazon. When you have to live with the name Bambi, you're not changing it once you accept it.
So is Bambi your birth name?
It is my birth name. Yes.
Wow. See, I don't think it is with her. The other one I think is a stage name or a pen name or something.
No, it is her. It absolutely is her. Who would do a Bambi as a pen name? Like that's kind of ridiculous.
A hunting enthusiast.
Yeah,
well, the thing is, this is the origin of my name. A lot of people, for a long time, I was going to change my name to Janet because I was like, I'm tired of my name because I was bullied a lot. And then when I was in high school, guys wouldn't date me because they didn't want to date a girl named Bambi. And so they thought that they were going to be made fun of and stuff. And then when I got older, men started asking me where I danced, if they found my name.
I didn't even make that connection. I was thinking like I would just make deer puns all day. That would be the whole reason I would date you, would be making deer puns. I didn't even connect that next to the stage, Bambi. Like I didn't even connect that at all.
Yeah, so it's an exotic dancer name. So for years, when I was about 32 years old, I was going to change my name to Janet. And then I had this conversation with God, and said, I'm going to change my name if you don't find my name in a name book. Finally, when I went to a bookstore to find what my name meant, my name is Bambi Lynn, and it means holy child. So I decided to get rid of all the puns and just make jokes about it if anybody said anything.
Speaking of, I don't know, porn stars, whatever, because Bambi is a porn star name. Let's see here. That's better. G.D. Fenderson, who is a former porn star himself, or something, erotica. It is a
a stretch. Star's a stretch.
Yeah.
He was a male dancer / Make-A-Wish granter.
Well, were you a fan? It seems like you know. You one of his fans. So Bambi, I apologize for having the wrong Bambi. Okay. This is not the first time it happened. I had a minister on one time, and I had his picture up. I had the picture of a black minister with the same name, and then he came, and it's like, wow, that's not the same guy. He looks much lighter in person. Tell us about you. And
it's good for radio.
Yeah. Tell us your story and tell us who you are as opposed to the Bambi that I have in the description there.
Well, my name is Bambi, just like you guys have figured it out by now. I am a mother of 6. They're all adult children. I do have 3 in the military. I do have 13 grandchildren. One of them had passed away when he was born. I am a public speaker. I also have been a guest on podcasts, over this past year. I am an author of 2 books and working on my 3rd one that's being edited right now. I homeschooled my kids for 27 years, and I'm a transplant from Buffalo, New York to the Golden Isles of Georgia. The pizza sucks here, but their barbecue is amazing. And I actually speak all over on healing through stories, because I believe that the more people tell their stories, the more healed they become, and we become a tribe, and we take off our mask and we just become real people.
Wow.
Okay, so tell us about the Josephine doll.
The Josephine, thanks for asking that. The Josephine doll, when I was 6 years old, my mother gave it to me as a Christmas present. Every year we got a doll for Christmas, and she made this doll. And she became my security blanket. She became my secret keeper, that she never told any of my secrets of the things that had happened to me throughout my life. She walked through all the trauma and everything that I had been through, and has watched me to become the person that I am today.
Now, do you okay? Now, my wife and I were discussing things of this nature. First of all, do you still have the Josephine doll?
I do, and if you would have asked me, I would have I do. She still has her, but this is what she looks like. My daughter just happened to antique it on here, but yes, I still do have my doll, and she sits and goes with me on speaking engagements.
Now, because my wife and I were talking about things of that nature, because we're making the bed, and she says to me, you need a new pillow, and I said, I'm not getting rid of this pillow. This pillow is my pillow. She goes, it's awful, it's torn, it's ratty. And I said, apparently you've never loved a stuffed animal before. And she goes, no, I have two that I've loved very much. They're missing eyes and legs and stuff. She says, but they're in the closet. And that's why I was wondering if that Josephine doll was like, because I'm looking at the hairline, and I don't know if it was made like that or if it's just been loved to that state.
Yep, she is 50 years old. So
she's like your Velveteen Rabbit.
Absolutely. I just don't play with her anymore or don't tell her any secrets anymore because I don't have any.
Now,
I have a question.
Sure. Wait, before you get to your question, the name of the memoir, and I'm assuming the second book is not a memoir, or you can't have two memoirs in the short life that you've had. So the name of them,
as many memoirs as you want.
You can, but you can not like. I think you have to be like Jimmy Carter's age to have more than one memoir. Okay. No.
Well,
the name of your.
The second book is
what?
The second book is called The Treasures of My Heart, which are the things that were given to me along the path of my life, that when you're in a storm, sometimes after the storm, we don't realize that there's actually treasures that come from the storm. It's, the only time that you will get those kind of things is through the midst of the storms of your life. So these
are Treasures of the Heart is the only one of your books, I think. It looks like all the other stuff is Viking erotica or paranormal stuff. This is the only one that comes up on the first page of Google for me. Is Treasures of My Heart. So that's
on Amazon. They both come up side by side.
They do.
Search Bambi Lynn.
Steven had a question.
Yeah, my question was, I saw on your Instagram the shirts that say "My Story, Your First Aid Kit."
Yes,
I saw that and I was like, "That's dope. I like that."
I just started selling them because I really believe that our stories are not meant for us. Our stories are meant for the people behind us. So when we live through something, it really helps the person behind you, and it becomes a first aid kit inside of their kit of life. Because if they just take our lives and look at the examples that we've had to go through and how we've dealt with them, we become a first aid kit to somebody else. It's kind of like we're plowing the field for the next person behind us. Authors do not write stories for themselves. We write them for people to be healed and set free.
To be fair here now, I just want to point out that for somebody like me, when you say people behind us, it's just going to make me paranoid because I'm always looking over my shoulder anyway. There's nobody behind me. You don't see anybody behind me, right? There's nobody.
Yeah, so
there's a cowboy. There's some country singer on your wall behind you. I think he's watching. Those eyes have been following you.
That's Hank Porter. He's cool.
Well, Hank's eyes have been following you the whole time. You move left, his eyes move left.
All right. Good for him. He should know where I go. Were you a teacher before you had your kids?
No, I was not. I actually had a teenage pregnancy that totally transformed my life. And you have to remember, this is a long time ago.
It happens a lot in Buffalo.
Yeah. My daughter is 30. My oldest daughter is 37 years old. So 37 years ago, I had a transformation, and the story, if I have a few seconds, the story is that I was living a really tough life. I had gone through a lot of things in my life, and I was ready to end my life on a bridge in Leroy, New York. And I thought nobody would even know that I was missing. And so I went to jump, and a police officer grabbed me, threw me into his police car, and took me to Children's Psychiatric Center, where that is where I found out that I was pregnant. And at that moment, I surrendered my life to Christ and said, if you save me and my baby, I will honor you and I will bless you all the days of my life. And that's what I've been doing for 37 years.
Wow.
Now, this is going to sound, I don't mean great.
You're okay.
The child, okay, no. Well,
You're get ugly.
Because if I got this right, you're a sexual assault survivor.
I had been sexually molested by my grandfather and then sexually assaulted by my uncle. But my daughter is not okay. The one of that. She is a daughter of a drug dealer and, you know, a man that never did anything with his life, but I did.
Okay.
Interesting. Now, how spread apart are your 6 children? I mean, in age-wise, are they?
Okay. Well, when after that, I ended up getting married a year later. So I have 4 daughters. My 4 daughters are all under 5 years old, and I was 22 years old when I gave birth to my 4th daughter. At the age of 28, I gave birth to identical twin boys. So I had 6 children, all in my early, in my 20s.
The reason I ask this is because I'm thinking about homeschooling 6 children at once. It's like the old-fashioned 1800s, 19th century schoolhouse thing. That's got to be. I mean, days must have been insane. You're doing kindergarten children and like middle school kids at the same time, right? Or close to it, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I started homeschooling my oldest daughter when I came home with my youngest daughter. So that's when I started homeschooling. So I started homeschooling when I was 22 years old.
My question about homeschooling is, when you homeschool your kids, what kind of excuses do they come up with for not doing their homework?
None. I didn't believe
it's all homework, right?
One of the reasons why I homeschooled my kids, I didn't believe in homework. I thought that was the devil that created homework for the family.
Well, it's all homework. If you're not leaving to go to school, it's homework.
It's all homework. Yeah.
Yeah. Did your kids? It's hard for you to know because you'd have to be somebody else's parent to know this for sure. But did your kids have a closer relationship, a closer bond because they went to school all in the same house with mom as the teacher than most families would? Is that
that would be that would be the great ideal. And for the most part, they are very close. They all have a text message thread with each other, but their lives have become so different. They're all over the place. I have 3 in the military, and so their lives are all different. They're just text messaging, siblings, for the most part now, until somebody gets married or whatever. But now they're all married.
The military part of it, was your husband in the military? I mean,
no. My daughter married a military guy, and my identical twin boys, since they were 5 years old, all they wanted to do was serve our country and just dedicated their lives. We went through at least 100, 200 GI Joes being thrown across the floor and getting taken care of with duct tape, and the next morning they're out to battle again. So yeah, we went through a whole lot of that. And my boys actually joined the military when they were 17.
Wow.
Served their country.
What was there any? It's hard to me to even put this into words. Something about the experience of being a homeschool teacher that changed the person that you are. I know you talked about your commitment to Christ and all this, but that happened before you became a homeschool teacher, right? Yes. Has the experience of being a homeschool teacher changed you profoundly from who you were before?
Well, I don't even think I knew who I was until I did start homeschooling. You have to remember, I'm 22 years old. What 22-year-old has 4 children and dedicated to homeschooling their children? That's a rare.
Oh, I know this one. I know. Alex, I'll take Catholic moms for $500.
I'm not sure about that. Most of the Catholic moms that I knew were happy to have their kids go up for a day. They had a lot of them.
I just wanted to give them an opportunity, to be a better person and a better citizen of the United States than necessarily I was. I wanted to give them life choices. My kids, are very, they're very educated in the Constitution. They're very educated in debating. They're very educated into the fact one of the greatest things that I used to do is that we had debates. I wanted my kids to learn to debate on both sides. And I wanted them to know the Constitution and to know what their rights were as citizens of the United States. And I wanted my kids to write. I wanted them to know how to write a story, how to write a document. So those were two of my strong points. I may not have been very strong in math, but that's where tutoring came from and stuff like that. But I just wanted to have kids that were going to make a change in this world.
Yeah, you know, part of this is I don't know what my feelings on it, but you have to have a pretty solid education yourself in a lot of different subjects in order to take this on, I would think. I mean, where do you get the training to be a homeschool teacher?
Well, why don't we ask the parents that had to homeschool their children during the pandemic? Why don't we, because when I started homeschooling, nobody was homeschooling. I was the only one in our county that was homeschooling, and we were ridiculed. We were put aside. But it's funny during the pandemic how all of a sudden, homeschooling was okay. So but it didn't have it either.
That's different than what you did because they were still in communication with their teachers on tablets and stuff, Zooming and all that stuff, right?
It definitely has changed our country, because now all they do is tablets. So I think that's a hard reality of what the pandemic did to our children. It gave them that all they are is on their tablets. There's not a whole lot of one-on-one activities anymore. There's not a whole lot of field trips, anymore and stuff like that.
Wow.
That's not all pandemic though, too. It's because a lot of schools are like underfunded tremendously. Like kids now, when they go to school, it's like every other month they're sending them home with something to fundraise for. So, and like the things with the tablets, that was happening way before the pandemic. The pandemic just accelerated and made it faster. Just like with automation in general.
And the problem is it accelerated it so much that they're still doing it today.
I just wish we would come out as a country and say, we don't care about education. It's easier to have it's just easier for people to be dummies because then you can do things.
They just come out with that, Ron. The Congress has just written a bill that they are going to basically disband the Department of Education and return it to the states.
Well, I wanted to go there because return it to the states. This idea of defunding the Department of Education or getting rid of it at all, would that have any bearing on what you did as a homeschool teacher? Because I'm assuming you had to follow some curriculum, and where that curriculum came from, it had to come from the state of Georgia, right? Not from the federal government.
I was from the state of New York at the time, so I had a lot of criteria. I had to I had to tell the school system that I was going to teach my kids at home. Then they had to okay my curriculum. Then I had to do every 4 weeks. I had to write out what we did within that. I had to school 180 days. I had to keep track of an attendance record that they could come to my door. I had to test my children every year. So there were parameters for me as a homeschooling educator. Every state.
Now I'm assuming. I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but the attendance record, it had to be 100%. Your kids, you're not letting them out of the house. How would somebody be absent? That would be a problem.
We also homeschooled year round because it helped me to be able to use things that we did in the summer, and as long as we schooled 180 days, and that was the difference between my home educators and public school. Is that I had to literally homeschool 180 days. The school system has 180 days that they get paid for, but they have half days. If they go into the morning, the government will give them their funding. If they go a certain amount of hours of time, the government will give them their funding. I had no funding. Everything was done by me, and our household. We paid for everything. But I believe that I gave my children a really good education. I failed in many aspects. I was young. But overall, today when I sit back and I look at who my children have become in our society, I would never change those 27 years of my life ever.
Now, one of the questions I have then, because when I was 25, I was trying real hard to be, I was trying real hard to be a good, I was raising kids for the first time. They weren't mine, they were stepkids, but I was still a child myself at 25. And so I basically had terrible role models to go by. So I was raising kids based on theory. So, I had like, this is my theory how a child should be raised because my parents didn't do a good job. So in raising your kids at 22, you're still a child yourself. Were you, and with what you had already experienced with the sexual assault, how did that shape what you were teaching your children?
Well, you have to remember, I did at 16 years old, radically got saved, became a Christian. So
but the experience is still there. The experience is still there. It's,
so then I had another guide and I had people in my life, mothers and older women in my life that would teach me what it meant to be a woman, what it meant to be a mother, what it meant to discipline, what it meant to keep a home, things like that. I made sure that I reached out to people. I made sure that I picked quality friends in my, in my life, that they were intentional people that were going to help me to become the better version of myself. Failed a lot, but that's where grace comes in. And, and every parent, we all think that we're going to do so much better than our parents until we have children of our own and realize we don't make the same mistake as our parents, but we make different mistakes. All of our children, no matter where you come from, they're going to say it was good or bad or indifferent. And I had 6 children. So I have 6 different perspectives. I have 6 different people, 6 different stories of 6 different activities or things that happen to our lives. I'm going to have 6 different stories. And you just accept it as a parent and you realize you're all growing through it.
Now, my mom and dad had 4 kids. So I used to say that they had 8 ways of raising children because my mother had 4 different ways for the 4 kids. And my father had 4 different ways for us. So there was like I think that's part of the reason why I grew up as sane as I did, because my parents couldn't agree.
Wait, what? Back up.
Yes.
You grew up as what as you are?
Sane as I am. It's relative, grading on the curve compared to the other children in my family. Because my parents couldn't agree. My parents couldn't agree on a conspiracy on which to, contaminate me. So I got to learn a lot between the gaps.
No, as long as that on the curve is in there, I think I'm okay with it.
And it also has to depend on what birth order you're in.
Youngest. I was the last accident.
Absolutely. So you were the funny, you were the comedian, you were everybody's going, oh, why does he get to have
No, you got the wrong shit. You got the wrong G.D. Fenderson. That's another G.D. Fenderson that writes about erotic Vikings or something.
My father used to say a mouth is a mouth.
Well, I don't know if you know it. I'm sorry.
My mother would hold men down and peg them while my father watched.
He doesn't say much, but when he does, it's vulgar.
I noticed. He needed to be homeschooled.
Yeah. Well, now what about the socialization part of it? Because a big part of school is learning that there's a whole lot of crazy people in the world, and there are bullies, and there are all sorts of things that go on in school that I don't think you would get necessarily in the home. Have your children grown up differently because of that lack of forced socialization with hundreds of other kids at a time?
Well, I never, the definition of, I think that there's different definitions of socialization. If you sit it right now, looking at all of us, we're all different ages, we're all different life experiences and everything, but yet we're socializing. Socialization to me isn't a 30 bratty kid, 5-year-olds in a room that their mommies are calling and saying, please don't touch, Billy, please make sure you cut Billy's sandwich. Socialization is, can your child socialize with any walks of life? Can they socialize with the disabled? Can they socialize with different ethnic groups, different racial groups? That is socialization. So my kids were involved in everything that I could possibly, get them involved in, and in creating things for them to make sure that they were well-rounded, individuals.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with what you're just saying. But when I think about if I would have grown up just with my parents and my siblings, and I only had one sibling, so it's really hard for me to imagine your kid's perspective. But it's almost like once you go out into the real world, it's like taking an Amish person and dumping in the middle of New York City and saying, "Okay, this is the real world."
My father would walk out of the shower and say, "This is a sausage cooking class."
Yeah, I just kept my children away from people like that.
Yeah, but no, there's none of that kind of I don't know, real world culture shock because you go up around your five siblings and your mother, and this is what school is, and then you go out and maybe they haven't really experienced the insanity of New York City or Los Angeles or big cities like that. But it's got to be a bit of a culture shock, no?
No, it wasn't for my. I have a realtor. I have a daughter that's a really good realtor. I have one that's an RN. I have 3 in the military. I have a daughter that works in the school system. So it depends. All that I was doing as a mom is that I was well-rounding my children for the future. I wasn't raising children. I was raising adults. Adults that were going to have to make it into society. So if they missed out on some people, like when I was in 7th grade, I was selling oregano to the when I was in 9th grade, I was selling oregano to the 7th graders. If that's socialization, okay, well then I prevented my children from having to be part of that.
Because one of the things you just said in there was you have a daughter who works in the school system. That's an interesting thing to me. Is that an act of rebellion, or I mean,
no, she wanted to be with her kids, and she didn't want to. She chose not to homeschool. So she wanted to be, around her children, to make sure what was happening in the school systems. I personally wouldn't want a child in the school system today. I don't think that they're safe. I think that there isn't a place, for them. And I think that they're shoving too many things on our children today that their minds cannot comprehend all of that at this time in their life. So
now, how much of that? Because I'll be honest, I think that's by design. I honestly do.
A little bit, GD. You're really hot.
I honestly believe that's by design because, first of all, an ignorant citizen is an uninvolved citizen. That's one thing. And a fearful citizen is an uninvolved citizen. So if we raise our children with ignorance and fear, they become adults with ignorance and fear, and then they pretty much are not socially able to, let's say, fight back against a government that's kind of screwed up.
Yeah. I just think, I just watched the movie last night, Bonhoeffer. What a realization, of what happened during Germany, how it was just a gradual thing, gradually. And then all of a sudden, they think Hitler's God, but Hitler wasn't God immediately. Hitler was God, very slowly getting involved, getting into the school systems, getting in with our children, getting into the church. And then all of a sudden he's God. Well, we know what he did. To a nation. We know what he did to a world, and we know what war he started. So
that's on the Angel Network, right? That movie you're talking about.
It's actually at the movies playing right now.
Oh, but it's from Angel Films. Then maybe is that correct?
Yes, it is from Angel Films.
Yeah, it caught my eye. I wanted to see that. I thought it was like on streaming services.
No, not yet.
That's an interesting story of how people got seduced into following Hitler. Yeah. I'm interested in that.
And he was a great leader, and that's what people, he was a destructive leader, but he was a great leader, and he did it in a way that people accepted him. He immediately gave, so that's what we need to understand, is that you need to understand what leaders you're actually following, what leaders that you think they're doing, but they're not.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine, a Jewish kid in high school, and his biggest beef with me was I said that in a conversation that Hitler was a good leader, and he misinterpreted that I was approving of what he did. I said, no, what I mean is he had good leadership skills. Yes. He was a horrible person. He was a terrible person, but he had good leadership skills because he got those people to follow him. Now,
Absolutely.
other than that, he was a horrible person, and anybody that followed him, I think, are horrible people.
Absolutely.
And in our country should not have hired his people to help run our country.
Well, I just my 2 cents on that is I don't know how we define his leadership skills. I think he was a master of image and manipulation, and because even when he was writing Mein Kampf, he had a photographer working with him on presenting this image of a strong man and all these images that he was publishing out there that helped. If he were alive today, he'd be using social media like a madman. But so I'm not sure where we define his leadership. I want to see the film. I guess I need.
Well, like I said, when I say leader, people followed him. Therefore, since he was in the front, he was the leader. I'm not saying. Believe me, I think he was a despicable person, and so.
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying, but I'm just wondering what those skills were that got people to follow him, and I think that's really more about the imagery and understanding image, the power of image, rather than anything he did that I would consider.
I think it's imagery, but also I think it's understanding human nature as well. Maybe his own flaws. Maybe he's like, this is what scares me. This is what scares me, so this is probably what scares them, and I will use that.
There was a great documentary that I had seen about what Hitler had done to kind of help emphasize his rise to power by use of imagery. By the way he positioned himself when he would speak, and the way he would he would be super animated when he would speak, and the way the flags looked, and just everything was planned out just because it had a certain look, certain feel, and it fed the narrative, and it was super interesting to watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know how we got on this part of the conversation.
We went around the Mulberry Bush.
It happened.
From homeschooling and children to Hitler in like 30 seconds. I love
it. So now, when you were homeschooling your children, was it always in the back of your mind that when these kids are done, the last one is done with 12th grade or wherever that the writing career was going to start then, or were you writing at that point? I mean, when did the author bug bite you?
I knew I was always going to be an author. I had a 7th grade teacher that I wrote something in 7th grade, and she asked me if after class, if I would go to her office. And her name was Miss Ludwig, and I was a terrible student because I talked all the time and I chewed gum, so I spent most of the time in the corner with gum on my nose.
Typical Buffalo kid.
Typical. So I went to her office that day, and she said, "Can you have a seat, Bambi?" And I said, "Sure." And she said, "I just want you to know that you have a gift. You have a gift to storytell, and someday you're going to represent this school as being an author, and I'm just very proud of you." And at that time, I didn't understand what that meant. I come from a very dysfunctional home, a home life that I felt like I was the only one in a globe, when everybody else was living their lives, and I had all these secrets that were happening inside of our home. So I didn't understand the words, those words until later on in life. I did write a lot, and my friends would tell me, "Bambi, you need to write a book. You need to write a book." But it did take me a long time, only because I needed to heal. I needed to let go. I needed to make sure that I'm writing a book that had no callous to it, that it had a book that people could feel the emotion of it and understand that it was coming from my heart. So when my kids left, my last boys, my 2 boys left for the military, I worked for a company. I worked for Nielsen TV ratings for 9 years and traveling across the country, signing up homes to be part of the ratings. So I needed to do that. I needed to transform who I was. I needed to understand cultures. I would sit in people's homes all day long, learning about their stories and their brokenness and their heartaches. So it took me until I was, I'm going to be 55 this year. Well, in January.
You're a kid.
I'm still a kid. So I have many more books to write, but I wrote my first book at 53, and then my second book at 54.
Now, my question about the books are, since your teacher was one of the ones who thought you was going to be an author, are your books featured in your school library back then?
They are featured in, and because that's a kind of like promotion and marketing tool, you find friends all across the country that go to their library and say, hey, can you order this book? So I was able to sell, 50 books just by my friends across the country going to their library. So there's a plug for libraries.
Now, here's my other question. Now, when the first time you saw your book in your school library, what was it like right here in your heart?
Well, the first time I even saw my book, it was there's something that happens within that. Now it's in writing, that it's there for life, and right. It's such an accomplishment, and I didn't start off in a good life, and for it to transpire that, I had the opportunity to be able to write my story and speak about it, all across the country. There is something when you pull your book out of your library. I had the librarian actually take a picture of me pulling my book off at the shelf, and there's just nothing like it. There's just nothing like it.
Anything in the preface or the bibliography or
a memoir?
Anything about the school, because your teacher was saying you're going to represent the school someday. Is there any way that a stranger who picks up your book would know that you are a graduate of that high school? And because if you're representing it, you want the world to know.
Yeah, right? I mean, I don't know if I wrote that I dedicated my first book to her. And when I had my first launch, a lot of people from my school came to my first book launch and hugged me and told me that they were sorry for bullying me and told me that they were sorry for the way that they treated me. And then they whispered in my ear, I just want you to know the things that happened to you also happened to me. So it was a total 360 of healing and transformation and definitely reconciliation.
Wow. Interesting. And now you've written 2 books. Both of them are nonfiction memoirs, right? Mm-hmm. Or do you have any interest in writing fiction or a different kind of book in the future as you move forward in your authorship career?
Well, I have my third book. My third book is being edited right now. I'm a great storyteller. I'm a terrible editor. So I do hire that out. I can write a story and I can captivate you, but putting it all in order, I do have an editor that does that. My next book, actually, I took 29 women that are in the Bible and I've made them more relatable today so that people
Wait, there's 29 women in the Bible? That's a lot.
Yeah, there's more than that in the Bible. There is even more.
I can only name Mary, Ruth, Mary Magdalene. I mean, that's it. I got 3.
Well, there's one example. I'll give you an example of
no, that's back Mary Magdalene again.
Okay. Well, what I did is that there's a parable, there's a parable in the Bible that Jesus uses a mean judge and a woman. And the woman kept going back and forth to the judge, and the judge kept telling her, get out of my courtroom, so to speak. And then finally, at the last time, the woman went back into the courtroom again and said, have mercy on me. And the judge finally lifts his hands up and says, whatever she wants, give it to her. And I use that illustration. I use that story in the Bible for women to continue to persevere. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up because you're full of an audience of men inside of the room. You continue to persevere, because as we persevere and as we continue to move forward in our lives, we are going to be a voice that people are going to need to listen to. So I took that story and created that premises for, that parable.
And so for Delilah, did you say get your license in cosmetology? Learn to cut hair. So get your own salon.
Forgot about that one. That's 4 I know of. Thank you for reminding me of her.
Now, Bambi, I have
or maybe for Solomon, you go don't lose your head over the situation. Something like that.
Well, Solomon is a male, so I didn't write about him.
No, the woman, the dancer, the one who got John the Baptist's head.
Oh yeah. I didn't write about. I wrote about women that were going to change. For us as women to be able to look at and to glean from them, and to be a better person of ourselves, to be a better version of ourselves, and to realize that everything was covered for us.
Stephen, before you
I know, poor Stephen. Are you the youngest or something?
Yeah. I want to be clear now, because the other Bambi, the one with Bambi Lynn, who we don't want to send people to, I have her link in the description, which is a .net. Are you BambiLynn.com? Where do we want to send people for you?
I'm actually Bambi through healingthroughstories.com. That is my website. It's called Healing Through Stories. It's all one word. And it is called that because that is also my platform. That is also, where I continue to lead people, because I believe that the more that we tell our stories, the more healed we become and the more prosperous we are in our country and in our homes and in ourselves as individuals.